Hey, so today's RICO 12 speaker meeting podcast is a little bit different than normal. Our guest speaker, unfortunately, was unable to be there when we started recording. So as I was going through that little dilemma before the meeting started with the live audience, they asked if I would be willing to get on the mic and share a little bit of my experience, strength, and hope. And so impromptu, I said I would do that. And so I shared a little bit of my experience, strength, and hope, and how my higher power has brought me to where I am today, for better or for worse. But so this one is a little bit impromptu, not planned. So have patience with it, but I hope you get something out of it because it's important to me. Welcome to the RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting. My name is Justin. I am a child of God and a recovering addict, and thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowship of other addicts, I am sober one day at a time since June 19th, 2015, and for that, I am beyond grateful. So gratefully, I turned 6 years old this last week, and man, what a beautiful thing and a miracle it is. Welcome to the RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting. We are an organization whose addictions include alcohol, drugs, lust and sex, food and gambling, just to name a few. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to learn the similarities of addiction and to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We invite recovering addicts with at least 1 year sobriety and who are actively working their recovery in their respective fellowships to share their experience, strength, and hope on a live Zoom webinar each Friday at noon Central Time for 20 to 25 minutes. Then we, the live audience, get the opportunity to ask questions of the speaker for another 20 to 25 minutes. If you are hearing this meeting in recorded podcast form and would like to participate as a live audience member in the future, please go to RICO12.com. That's RECO12.com to learn more and submit your email address there to receive weekly invitations. RICO 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our 12th step in this manner. We gratefully accept contributions to help cover the cost of the Zoom platform, podcast platform, web hosting, and administrative costs. To contribute, you can go to RICO12.com/support, or you can click the link to PayPal that will be here in the chat of the live meeting or in the show notes of the podcast. When you contribute, please specify the meeting number. This is meeting number 55. Last week's meeting was with Mike C., and he spoke on how urgency is the enemy of recovery. That talk and many of the points he made were mind-blowing, at least for me. If you missed hearing that meeting or any other meeting we have done, you can listen to them in podcast form by searching for RICO 12 Speaker Meeting Podcast on virtually any podcast platform that you use. Or you can go to the RICO 12 website and find it under the link podcast. All right, I'm going to jump down here. We had a guest speaker scheduled for today, but it appears that he is not able to make it. So at the urging of one of our live audience members, Ari, I appreciate it. I am going to be doing a bit of that today. I'm going to share something that I wrote last week on my 6th birthday in recovery, and then I'll take some questions. I would love to take some questions from the live audience here. Maybe you have some questions for me. You want to get to know me. We get to hear and learn a lot about our regular speakers, but often I don't get to share my own story. So we'll give that a shot here. And I think, so I guess I'll give a little recovery bio on myself. I haven't written this, but here I am. My name is Justin B. I am a son of God and a recovering addict to lust. I'm a sexaholic. My primary fellowship is SAL, Sexaholics Anonymous Lifeline, found at sal12step.org. I've been sober since June 19th, 2015. Most of my sobriety was in, I would say, a pretty rigid program, which I still adhere to a lot of rigidity in my program. But I have found that the concept of, I've had two major life changers in my recovery walk, and most of them happened since the end of 2019. And one of those was a step 2 concept of firing God, the small g God, and hiring the capital G God. And that was a revolutionary concept taught to me by one of the men who I have interviewed in this and another podcast that I've done. And the other is the concept of two-way prayer, step 11 concept practiced by the very early members of Alcoholics Anonymous who came out of the Oxford group. And those two things have revolutionized my own walk in recovery over the last couple of years. So let's see. That's a little bit about me. If you want to know more, you can ask questions in the Q&A link at the bottom of the screen there. But I'm going to go ahead and read my morning journal entry from June 19th of this year, which was my 6th birthday. Once again, this is kind of a rough draft thing. I have not formally written it anywhere but in my journal. So here we go. If I make it through today, I will be sober for 6 years. What a miracle and blessing. I will be asked a few times over the next few days, how did you do it? And I think that my answer will be different than it was for 5 years when I wrote the essay that I titled, I Am Already Dead. And that's what I learned in the first 5 years of my recovery. This time around, I feel that I have learned the power and reality of God through the step 3 covenant that I have made and continue to renew with him every single day. I have also learned the vital importance of interacting with, learning from, and trying to emulate the best parts of fellow addicts with longer-term sobriety than I have. If I am my own best example of what recovery looks like, I am in huge trouble. That is something that I am learning from the likes of Harvey E., Angie H., Cameron F., Robert P., Father Bill W., Bill M., Mike C., and many others whose paths I am being allowed to cross. I am also noticing something there. Every name I mentioned there are people from different faiths than my own. They are also different kinds of addicts in many cases. I don't think there is anything that needs to be read into there other than the fact that God works with all of his children. He doesn't love me any more or any less than anyone from a different faith, or any more or any less because the killing or deadly addiction in my life is different than someone else's. We are all his children. We are all imperfect and have things that keep us from clear connection and conscious contact with the God of our understanding. I find myself saying or thinking that I am better than, if I find myself saying or thinking that I am better than or worse than someone else because of my religious faith or dogma or fellowship or recovery or the rock bottom of my addiction, then I am putting enmity or a barrier between not only myself and those other children of God, but between myself and God. I am not allowing myself to hear and feel God as I otherwise should and need to. I have learned the absolute truth for me that the God of my understanding knows me and hears me and answers my questions every single day. I have learned that my questions are sometimes not the right question and that I get a different answer to a different question. I have learned the truth of the phrase, more will be revealed. I have learned that I can't be, won't be, and am not expected to be perfect. Just that I can, will, and am expected to progress one day at a time, every day, for the rest of my life until I am safely dead. And that was my morning journal entry on that day of my birthday. And as I look back at that now, I read it once since then. But as I read it through this time, there's something that jumps out at me. The concept of more will be revealed, and working with other addicts with a little more, whatever, sobriety and time working their recovery than I have. As mentioned, one of my favorite mentors in recovery is Father Bill W. He is the man who introduced me to two-way prayer and is a mentor in that for me. And he has 48 years sobriety. And he shares with me regularly, Justin, I learned something new in recovery. I learned a new principle today. And he shares that with me. After 48 years, it's not stale. He's not done. And that brings me hope, because so often, especially in the first couple of years of really working recovery, I thought, I've arrived. I thought, I get it. I'm sober. I got it. I got this. And now that red flag, anytime I hear in my mind the phrase, I got this, man, sirens are going off, flags are all over the place saying, hey, Justin, wake up. What is going on that makes you think you got this? And that concept of more will be revealed just is a huge comfort to me, that no matter how much I learn, no matter how much I experience, there is still more to experience. And it will only get stale if I allow it to. So here's a little bit about me and my walk there, but I would like to take some questions from anybody out there. Type them in the Q&A there at the bottom of your Zoom window, and I'll get to those. I'll also share something that was shared by one of the audience members, REA, here in just a minute. She or he, I'm sorry, I don't know. But Ari says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. I really like that, Ari. And I appreciate you sharing that. There's a phrase that I hear often, and I'll get to that, Amy. There's a phrase that I hear often about if I am disturbed, then it is something with me. It's not something that someone else did. And I've heard other people argue that no other people can disturb me. Yes, but I still need to look at myself and say, okay, why is that person disturbing me? What happened? Why did I allow them to step on my toe? Or when they stepped on my toe, why did I get so upset about it? Awesome. So Amy asks or says, please share more about little G God versus big G God. Thank you. This is, like I said, one of the revolutionary concepts in my own recovery. And I'll do a little backstory before I get into this. In about November of 2019, I was doing a different podcast. I was hosting a different podcast. And it was just getting, so it was the tagline was ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And I was just talking to people about their lives and getting them to share their life with me. And I had this overwhelming drive, this feeling, this prompting, I guess, from God. I was working my recovery, but I was not doing a recovery podcast. It wasn't as an addict. So I had this prompting, Justin, I need you to do a 12-week series on the 12 steps of recovery, one of each of the 12 steps of recovery. And so I did that. And that podcast was called Journey Through Life. And it was the first 12 weeks of the year 2020 that I did that series. And when I interviewed the guy for step 2, it was somebody I had never talked to before other than an introductory thing. Somebody had said, hey, Justin, do you know Harvey E. from Toronto? I was like, no. He goes, you need to know him. He would be a great step 2 guy. So he gave me his contact information. I reached out to him and he did it. And this man, he's an Orthodox Jew, totally different faith than I am. And he shared with me his walk through step 2. And he talked about firing God. And immediately when he said that, I had these, that's blasphemous. This guy's going to hell type thoughts, And then as I continued to listen to him and hear him out and hear that experience out, it just smacked me upside the head. Now, one more backstory on this. My whole life, I've been a quote unquote religious person. I've been one who goes to church every week, say my prayers and do all the checkbox things, But I always felt my whole life that my prayers were doing nothing but bouncing off the ceilings and walls, and that the voice that I heard back, if and when I ever heard a voice back, was telling me that I was unworthy, small, not of value, whatever. And this whole concept of small g and capital G God comes from this experience. I then went through the process of firing the God of my understanding at that point. And I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear of, is that going to take away any foundation, any faith, any trust that I have in any sort of religion or spirituality or whatever. And it really scared me. But what I did immediately is I put out a want ad, basically. This is the God that I need. I need a God who loves me, who is my biggest fan, who accepts me even in my imperfections and says, hey, Justin, get up, let's do this again, instead of you're so stupid, stay down there. You may as well just curl up in the corner and die because you're so worthless. And I quickly realized as I did that and started hearing the voice of that God, that was the capital G God that I had been praying to my whole life, but I had not been hearing, because the small G God, who I had set up a corner office space in my head, just constantly was beating me down and telling me I was worthless. And but the new God of my understanding, who is a capital G God, just lifts and inspires and cheers me on and helps me out. So that's my experience with that. That's a quick overview of small G versus capital G. One, small G isn't strong enough to rescue me. He doesn't want to. He doesn't care to. And even if he did, he's not strong enough to. Capital G can lift me, inspire me, and rescue me from anything. If I'm surrendering, we talk about surrender a lot in recovery rooms. If I'm surrendering to a small G God, I'm basically surrendering to a white knuckle situation. But if I'm surrendering to a capital G God, I am free, and I can walk through that day surrendered and with my head up and my shoulders square, not arrogant, but knowing that God has me and that he will carry me through that day. So there's a little bit about small G versus big G God. I hope that answers your question. All right. Another question came in from Ari. Are you not afraid to discover a new God in 10 years? Will you fire again the God of today and make him a small God? That's a great question, Ari. That's another concept of more will be revealed. If I think another thing that Father Bill W. taught me, he calls the God of my understanding the God of my misunderstanding. I believe that the God of my understanding will continue to develop, and not that he or it changes, but that my understanding changes. And I think for me, it's almost a daily thing of saying, making that choice. Today, God, I choose you. Who are you for me today? Now, does that sound like it's a little bit, the word I'm thinking of is weefy, which is I don't even think it's a real word, but is it not solid? I don't think so, because my brain, my mind, my heart is wavering, but I think the more I see, or the different concepts I have of the God of my understanding, who currently to me today is a capital G God, is enough. And if 10 years from now my perception of God changes, I kind of hope so. It's the more will be revealed thing. Now, does that mean that God changed? I don't believe that. It just means that my understanding of him changed. Thanks for that question, Ari. Let's see. Any other questions there? No, if you do have a question, type it in the Q&A. I'll just go until we have no more questions, but I really appreciate this opportunity to do this. In the meantime, I do have one more concept that has been massive for me this last year, and I referenced it in my journal thing. It's the step 3 covenant. And I started calling it a covenant this year. And it used to just be taking my step 3 surrender. But I've come to experience for me that it's a two-way promise, that if God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me. If I offer myself to him, and that's the step 3 prayer, he will build with me and do with me as he will. He will relieve me of the bondage of self, that I can better do his will. He will take away my difficulties, that I may, now as I'm walking through this, the step 3 prayer kind of fizzled on me, but he'll take away my difficulties, and I'll be able to go through that and make it, and he will make things happen through me. All I've got to do is offer myself to him, to do with me whatever he wants to do today. And that's my morning routine every morning. As I stir from sleep, I go directly into the serenity prayer, and directly from that into the step 3 prayer, and directly from that into the step 7 prayer. And it's a morning routine, and there's no coincidence that the last phrase in the step 7 prayer is grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. As I'm saying that, I am dragging myself out of bed, sometimes totally unwillingly, asking for his strength to grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. All right. Follow-up question. Yes. So if I understand you correctly, you didn't fire any God. You just fire your misunderstanding of him. Yes. Thank you for helping me clarify that. Yes. I think that's the truth. Now, I am one who has been brought up with the belief that there is a good and an evil, a God and a devil. And the devil can, in my understanding, in my belief, can influence me, can get in there and speak to me. And I often equate the small g God to that adversary, to that devil, that Satan, who can, in my understanding, get in there and tell me that I'm worthless, tell me that I've messed up too bad and I'll never be good enough to be with God. So I equate, yes, firing it to the misunderstanding of God, but also to kicking the adversary out and firing him. And he keeps trying to get back in. There are days where I'll have those thoughts come into my mind of, Justin, you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. You may as well just give up now. And as soon as I hear that, I don't know if it's as soon as I hear it, as soon as I recognize it, I go, I fired you. Get out. Get my security guards in my brain to grab him by each arm and drag him out of my brain and invite capital G God back in and ask him, how do you see me? And I love that question. God, show me how you see me. And he'll just give me a little glimpse of who he sees me as, or at least who I think he sees me as, which is even a little glimpse just lifts me and encourages me. Thanks, Ari, for asking that, or that clarifying question. I appreciate it. All right. Another one. Anonymous attendee. As you released the idea that you needed a big G God, can you please share how you began to change your concept in the beginning? Let me read that again, make sure I understand it. As you released the idea that you needed a big G God, can you please share how you began to change your concept in the beginning? Yeah, I think it was more of a, so there's an exercise in one of the books used in Sexaholics Anonymous. It's called Step Into Action. Hang on just a sec. Let me grab that book. So it's called the Step 2 Inventory. It's one way of working Step 2. And what I did in there is what you do is you make a four column like table. And each of the headings of the 4 columns are, the top one is powerful people in whose presence I have felt powerless in. Could be a parent, it could be a school teacher, it could be a boss, it could be a religious leader, it could, whatever it may be. And then in the next column, what happened? Why did I feel powerless? Why did I feel less than or unworthy in that person's presence? And I record that. It's kind of like a Step 4 inventory, but it's Step 2. It's specifically for trying to figure out who God is in my life and who he needs to become. This third column is what I learned. What did I learn from that interaction? And I'll give an example here in just a minute, but I want to go through the 4 columns first. And the 4th column is the truth I choose to believe today. All right. So I'll give you an example according to my memory of one of the lines in that. I had a boss Oh, it would be close to 20 years ago now, I think. Probably about 18 years ago. He was very big. He was tall. I'm not a tall person. He was very tall, and he was very loud. And each evening, as we came in at the end of the workday and got into the room, and he went around, or each morning before we took off, he went around and he did just a crew meeting, basically. Hey, let's talk about the day. Let's talk about this. And his thing, and I was brand new. It was within my first week or two. And he came up to me and he had this really long finger. And every time he talked to somebody, he pointed at him and he waved his finger right in their face. And he was belittling me about something I did wrong. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I just saw this finger waving at me. Now, how did that? I felt powerless. I felt like I've got nothing that I got control over here, and this big guy is just belittling me. What did I learn from that? I learned that God will point me out and belittle me in front of a whole bunch of people for every mistake I make. Did I think that at the time? No. But as I look back at it, I can see how I felt that and how it came to me like that. What is the truth I choose to believe today? God does not point me out to belittle me. He lifts me. He encourages me when I make mistakes. His hand is not like this. It's like this. Here, let me help you up and let's move forward with this. So that's just one line of my step 2 inventory, as I call it, that helped me transition from a small G God, one who points at me and waves his finger at me and belittles me in front of everybody else, to one who encourages me and says, hey, let's do this together. Stand up. All right. So that's an example of that. Thank you for asking that question. Had another question come in here. Oh, where can we find that book? So this is called Step Into Action. You can find it on the SA website, Sexaholics Anonymous website. You might be able to find it on Amazon too. But it's kind of a way to walk through the 12 steps in SA. It's pretty good. All right. I got another one that came in. Hunter asks, how do you avoid regret of the years spent out of recovery, particularly how it hurt those around you? Great question, Hunter. Now, I think for me, yes, I felt a lot of regret, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt for those years initially. And I still regret, I guess, is the best word, how it hurt those around me. But in working the steps and going through step 8 and 9, hopefully when I make amends with them, and they don't have to forgive me, that's not part of it. It's me owning my part publicly with those people. And hopefully in that process, I'm able to say, okay, I've done that. I now can forgive myself. And that's very vital, to forgive myself. But how do I avoid regret of the years spent out of recovery? I no longer regret those years, man. They have brought me to where I am today. Am I sad that I was stupid? Yeah. But I would not be... One, I wouldn't be where I am today. Two, I wouldn't understand. I'd still be, floundering in life with no real purpose. I think that recovery in the 12 steps, whether my purpose is, like currently, I believe one of my purposes is doing something like this, working my step 12 in this manner in a podcast. I wouldn't be doing that if I hadn't gone through those years of regret. Now, other people, their purpose may not be anything like what I'm doing. It may be something totally different. But without those years of stupidity, of active disease, of turning my back on God, on others, on myself, I wouldn't have the experiences I need to come to where I am, where I'm at today. And one other thing, I'm going to talk about step 9 here for just a second. I have found it vital for my own self, and for many who I have worked with through step 9 to do a formal amends, a formal apology to myself, to write it out. And then when I'm ready to make amends with myself, to sit in front of the mirror and read it to myself while I make eye contact with myself and forgive myself and tell myself I'm sorry for the stupid things I did to myself and move forward. There have been many times that I've done this with people where tears have been shed, where massive healing was done. A lot of times the hardest thing to do is to forgive myself. And that is something that has helped me a ton, is the ability to do that and to do it one day at a time, because I still do stupid things every day, whether it's to hurt myself or to hurt my family, my wife, my kids, coworkers, whatever it may be. And that's the importance of step 10 of as quickly as possible making those amends, recognizing those, and as quickly as possible doing that. So I think that's how I would like to answer that question there, Hunter. All right. As of right now, that's all the questions that are here. If anybody else has a question, I'll give you another minute here. But I'll just my last question to our guests after questions dry up from our audience and from myself is, do you have any final words of wisdom? Now, I don't know if I have words of wisdom here, but one of the 3 phrases, whatever, mottos that I've picked up this year, and I've heard it before, but it's one that's helped me a ton each and every day. It's basically taking step 1, step 2, step 3 in 3 quick phrases. I can't, he can, I will let him. And as I repeat that phrase in my mind and out loud, and if I'm talking to a fellow recovering addict or someone who's just struggling and use those phrases, it's like this 3-step. I can't, I'm brought down to right-sized. He can, I look to who has right-sized and powerless. He can, I look to the one who has power and who can, and I will let him. I then surrender and say, take me where you need me. And once again, I'll use the same phrase that I used earlier. I can then walk with my head high, my shoulders up, not arrogantly, not cocky, but with confidence that the one who has the power has me and will take care of me. Even if the day doesn't go smoothly, he still will take me and do with me as he will. And that's basically it. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. This was not what I had planned, and definitely probably is quite rough and not flows very well. But I think we're good. Let me just make sure. Yep, we're good. All right, I'm going to do the closing reading, and then I'm going to do the 3 prayer thing that I do every morning when I get out of bed to close us out. And I'm actually going to look at this to read it so I don't mess up, because that would be kind of embarrassing. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. All right. That was, well, I don't know if I want to say that was a great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting, but I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Thank you all for your questions. And this meeting was for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If you have any other questions or would like to start any other discussions, please go to rico12.com/forum and join in our community and ask those questions and answer others' questions that will come up. Next week's speaker meeting will be one of the pre-recorded ones that will not be done live. I will be on the road next Friday, so I'm going to be recording with Mary H. Next week, but it will be posted on the podcast platform of your choice at noon Central Time next Friday, July 2nd. Like I said, Mary H., who's sober since November of 2015 in NA and SLAA, and she'll be speaking to us on the topic of freedom of recovery. I'm excited about that. You'll be able to listen to that podcast that will post, like I said, July 2nd at noon Central Time. If you've not yet gone to rico12.com and submitted your email address, please get on the invitation list so you can join us live each Friday at noon Central Time. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the Serenity Prayer, followed immediately by the Step 3 prayer, followed immediately by the Step 7 prayer. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Keep coming back, everybody. It works if you work it. So work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. I can still be found, standing still.
My wings are torn and tattered, but I know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered, I may not rise too high.
Recorded in the book of life and binded with a seal.